Hello. Hi, how are you, Mr. Winston?
Good. How are you, Aishvara?
It's been 3 years.
What's that?
It will be 3 years since I last saw you, right?
It's like bookends for the pandemic, I decided,
Oh my God, yeah.
right?
Oh my God, yeah. The pandemic was on. Oh my God, yes.
It
Oh
was
God,
just starting, now it's ending. So,
I mean, honestly, there have been rumors that it's gonna start again.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it's the new world.
Oh God. So how have you been?
I've been good. Life has been good. I feel a little guilty. It's so good.
Why?
Well, so many people are suffering, around the world
I mean, yeah. But
everywhere.
uh, you're still practicing what you do. So I think that's amazing. Hats off to you.
Yeah,
Honestly, I would just like not work after 50.
I know. Well, you know what? The weird thing, since I saw you,
hmm
of these clients from 16 years ago, 14 years ago, they came back to me because now they're home with their spouse stuck inside. And so they had new problems. So, yeah, it was just my practice got much bigger. It actually was back to full time during the pandemic.
Oh my God. I'm so happy for you.
Well, it was a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, but I'm so happy for you. Oh my God. Uh,
It's nice to be wanted, that's for sure.
oh,
Whether
always a pleasure.
sexually or otherwise.
Oh my God. What you do is something I feel like we really need, but like we don't have enough.
Anywhere in the world, but in
Yeah,
India,
anywhere in the
I
world,
mean,
especially this
yeah,
country.
yeah.
Definitely not. So, okay, so actually there are a lot of things. The last time I saw you, I could never cover because the last time I was part of this, actually few of the members that are here were part of Road Track back then as well. So back then I was part of an organization. So we kind of had to just cover like a very specific thing. But this is more of like a very open-ended kind of thing. So if people are like willing to ask any other kind of questions, they're willing to do that as well. So um,
I I prefer it that way.
yeah, right.
I think it's boring if I just talk and talk and talk. It's better to have a conversation.
Yeah,
I
exactly. And
Yeah.
people are okay. Like if people are joining, it's a bit of a struggle, I think. I myself was struggling to use Zoom, honestly.
I have an excuse. I'm old. You don't have that excuse.
I can't say that. I can't say that. Oh, okay. So first of all, happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. I never
Yeah.
really got to like ask you much about that last time. And the whole like your book and like Paul, like all of that completely slipped my mind altogether. And I really wanted to like touch that subject. And it's like the last day of Pride, so having you here is just a big thing. It means a lot to me.
Oh, good. You know about Paul.
Definitely, I'm actually queer myself, so I do know
Wow.
about Paul. But if that is something that you are comfortable talking about, of course.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm open. I don't have any secrets anymore.
Oh, I mean, it's okay to
Okay.
have them though. It's your private
What?
life. So it's okay to have them though. It's your private life.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Most people have sexual secrets. The thing is, sometimes when you're a public figure in sexology, it's better to just not have any, you know.
oh, I know.
It's
I get it.
actually, it, you know, in the 1970s,
hmm
sex education in America took a change, and they called it the feminist sex education.
Why?
And that concept is that the teacher, the lecturer, should open up and expose their own personal sexuality, because then it encourages other people to do the same. For example, if a woman teacher at a college says, I was sexually abused as a child,
Mhm.
then two or three or four other women in the class will say, I was too. And other people will see, oh, I can talk about that. I don't have to keep that a secret.
Mhm.
See, so that's the feminist way of doing sex education, is to be open and expose.
I think that's brilliant, but I think it does take guts. It does take guts.
It does. It does.
Because
Yeah.
I'm like, a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable just coming up and saying, yeah, I got assaulted, or like, it's
Right.
something that's still very stigmatized. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, and like there's a lot of like the victim blaming that goes on. So, uh,
Right. And
so
the stigma, in many cultures, if a woman is sexually abused, they do an honor killing. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry.
The In some cultures,
All right.
if a woman is sexually like raped by a stranger, the
Right.
family will kill her because she's brought shame to the family.
That's a cultural thing. I mean, like that's something just I've heard of, but like I didn't think it was a real thing. Oh my God, that's disgusting. Oh,
Oh, yes, it exists in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, much of the Arab world. They call it honor killings. They do it with gay people too. If they have a gay son,
oh my God.
they'll kill him because everyone in the neighborhood will say, shame on you. You have a family member who's gay. You need to kill him. And they do.
Oh
And
God.
yeah, it's a terrible thing.
So how was that for you? I mean, like, to be honest, like it is already pretty difficult to be queer in the world at the moment. So like back then for you, and like being out queer is just something I can't. It just takes a lot of guts. So how did you do that?
Well, we know from research that a lot of it depends on family
Hmm.
and culture. It
Hmm.
depends on your environment. If you have a supportive network of people, it's easier. If you live in a country where it's illegal, it's
Hmm.
harder. And in India, it was illegal until the Supreme Court made the decision. When was that? Like 2013 or something?
Yeah, no, I think it's been 3 years. I'm not too sure.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
a marriage is still not legal. You just allowed to like have sex with your queer mate. You're not allowed to marry yet.
uh-huh. No,
So,
but before it was the British colonial law of
mhm.
sodomy. You could go to prison in India.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
you could here in America until 2003. There were 17 states that it was illegal to engage in homosexual activity in
Okay.
2003. Yeah. And in India, it was until, I don't remember the date, but it was a big Supreme Court
Oh
in
yes,
India decision.
it was a big thing altogether.
Yeah, I think they called it decriminalizing,
Yes, yes, correct.
so
Yes.
that you couldn't be punished anymore.
God, it's so sad, and it's like, oh God. Wait, so did you have a supportive family? Like, did you?
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah,
did. Oh my God,
yeah,
that's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
What about Paul? So like how did you all like navigate that together?
Well, we'd already both been out for years and years, publicly as well as with just friends.
Mhm.
So, and it wasn't, you know, the coming out part was nothing with Paul. It was non-existent. It was years in the past. So,
Oh,
um,
could you like talk a little about your book, Legacies of Love? By the way, guys, if you all don't know, he's an author as well. So, um, just saying.
so people are listening. We're
Yeah,
in
yeah,
on,
they're
we're
listening.
doing.
Actually, I have a lot of
Hello,
people like
everybody.
putting. I have a lot of people like putting like private questions, like even last time. For whatever reason,
Okay.
you're too shy to like ask questions directly, so they direct them to me. for whatever reason that
Okay, that, or if you want, you could put it in the chat box
yeah,
on the
yeah, but then
bottom.
their names, they just too
Oh,
but
okay.
y'all can go ahead and ask directly too. I would recommend that. He's oh, hi
Hi, Lena.
Lena. How are you? You can ask him any question you want. Okay, this is like an interactive thing. This is not like you can unmute, you can ask him anything. This is kind of like an interactive, fun session. Nothing formal. So if you want to smoke a cigarette, drink a glass of wine, you can do that.
I have a question.
Oh.
How's that? Uh, it used to be illegal in India to sell or transport sex toys. Is it still against the law?
I'm still not sure. Actually, I'm gonna check that right now. Do you guys know? Because the last time I remember we spoke, it wasn't legal.
Right.
It wasn't legal. And wait, but there are a lot of brands that do sell sex toys. So it's something that is ongoing. I don't know if it's a legal thing, but it's
Yeah.
definitely more common now. So
Uh-huh. Well, I would imagine you could buy them online and have it mailed to you easier.
I think it is legal actually. I think it is because I mean I see it on the streets. So
Oh, you do
yeah, I
openly.
do see it.
Okay.
Yeah, openly, but not exactly openly. It's a little closed off, but
Yeah.
but it's definitely more
Because
than it used to be.
the last time I went to India, I
Mhm.
didn't know that. And I brought a suitcase full of sex toys to give out as presents to people that, they took me to dinner. I gave them a vibrator, whatever. And then they told me, oh, no, you could 2 years in prison for each one. I thought, oh my God, I could have spent the rest of my life in prison.
How long ago was this?
So luckily,
Uh,
that was
uh,
2011. That's the last
okay, so
12
that
years, yeah, since I was
is. I don't think it's illegal
I
anymore. Sorry, uh, I'm sorry, I'm confused.
want to see.
Okay, so okay, so I actually had one question that was coming from someone who couldn't be here right now, or they would be joining in like 20 minutes. So not too sure. Something regarding like after like sexual assault, how do you feel comfortable with your bodies? How would you recommend people start feeling comfortable with their bodies?
Wow. So that's not something that I generally work with.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there are people who work in that field.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, like the sex aspect is just one part, that the big umbrella
Mm-hmm.
for that question is about survival of assault.
Mm-hmm.
What,
Correct.
because it doesn't have to be sexual, it's still about reclaiming your body
Correct.
and your autonomy and your ownership after somebody else violated you. So yeah, I it's not really something I've worked with a lot or know much about sexual assault victims and the psychotherapeutic recovery from that.
Okay, but what do you what would be your take on the fact that like people with sexual assault usually either have a high sex drive or a very low sex drive? It's that's something I've noticed a lot actually.
Well, then I think also, I know you have to break it down into, are we talking about men victims or women victims?
Oh.
Are we, well, yeah, I know they did a study in America, and it was a meta-analysis of about 100 research projects.
Mm-hmm.
And they found that male survivors of sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
were much more, child sexual abuse, not adult, child sexual abuse, were much more likely to say, I enjoyed it. It was okay. It was not a problem. Two-thirds of male adult survivors.
Oh God.
as opposed to 2/3 of female adult survivors said it was traumatic, it was horrible, and it's affected me terribly. So there's a huge gender difference. And also queer kids are almost twice as likely to be sexually abused than heteronormative children in America.
I
So
think that's something that's worldwide. I don't really know why, but
probably,
it is something.
probably,
And
yeah.
because a lot of cases that I've heard too, even with men, is usually by men too. So it's
It's almost always by men.
so yeah.
Women don't, it's very rare that women sexually abuse people. It's
Mhm,
almost always men. And, you know, most of this is a lot of people don't understand this,
mhm.
but over 90% of children who are sexually abused, it's a family member.
Oh God, yeah.
And we teach the kids what they call stranger danger. Watch out for the strangers, you know, but it's so rare that the strangers do anything. It's like about 3% of child sexual abuse is someone the kid didn't know. 90%'s in the family, and then the rest of that's either a teacher or a priest or a doctor or somebody that the child trusted. So it's that violation of trust that's usually worse than the physical trauma. And
Okay.
in fact, all the couples I've worked with, all of them for 30 years now,
Mhm,
when there's an infidelity, when
mhm.
one husband or wife cheats on the other,
Yeah.
they always say to me in session, they'll say, it's not the sex, it's that he lied to me. That's what bothers me, that he lied to me.
Not the sex.
You see, it's a betrayal of trust.
Yeah,
That's the
I think the whole concept of like cheating has more to do with insecurity than sex in itself. But I think that's just what I feel, but I'm not too sure. What
well,
would be your take on polysexuality in that case, though?
well, let me go back a second. I think you were on track there. They did a study in Western Europe
Mm-hmm.
back in the 1990s and found that I can't remember exactly, it was somewhere in the 80 percentile
Mm-hmm.
of adults that had been married more than 20 years that cheated. It wasn't about the sex, it was about, I need to know, I'm 50 years old. I want to know that I'm still valuable,
Mm-hmm.
that people still want me sexually, that's what it was about. It was about validation and, you know, worrying, oh, I'm all washed up, you know, nobody's going to want me. My boobs are sagging, or, you know, I'm 50, you know, it's gravity is here. And so that's the reason it's not a sexual compulsion.
Okay. I mean, I think that makes total sense actually. Over
So I see a question from
question,
Nina.
yeah, that's I'd like to know what is the difference between healthy sexuality and unhealthy sexuality.
So there's an old joke in the gay community by a old British drag queen named
Okay.
Quentin Crisp.
Why is
And
that familiar? Okay.
he wrote a lot of books. He was a very interesting person in queer history. He's from England, he's British.
Okay.
So he speaks English like you guys from India. Uh, uh, he said, he said, health consists of having the same diseases as your neighbors.
Hmm.
And I think that's really profound, because what is healthy? What is healthy is a social construct. What's considered healthy sexuality in Los Angeles
Mhm.
might not be the same as what's considered healthy sexuality in rural Madhya Pradesh. Did I say that right? Madhya Pradesh?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? If the Hindu fundamentalists
Mhm.
will have a certain frame, how they think of healthy sexuality.
Good.
Someone in San Francisco who's surrounded by queer people and orgies and whatever will think of healthy sexuality in a different way. That, in Pradesh, they might say, oh, only sex within a marriage is healthy.
Correct.
If you have sex outside of marriage, it's unhealthy. In San Francisco, they might say, if you're not having sex outside of marriage and you're only having sex with one person, that's not very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really good question, Ninad. Is that how you say Ninad?
Oh, yes, no. Yeah.
Ninad?
You're really good at pronouncing these things, but yeah.
It's a really good question, and I think it's an indication of danger, because lots of times people think their healthy sexuality should be imposed on other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dangerous. So I think healthy sexuality for me, if you would ask me personally, I would say that it doesn't have guilt, that are we live? Did I freeze? You look frozen. I don't know if can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, wait. Let me reconnect to my phone. So this would be better. Is this better? Can you hear me now? Okay, this seems the
Now you look normal.
okay.
You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear perfectly.
No, I didn't mean normal in a pejorative way.
Oh no. That keeps happening with the internet. I apologize.
Oh, I know. So I think for me, healthy sexuality is going to be no guilt,
Mm-hmm.
that I shouldn't feel bad about what I'm thinking or what I'm doing. I think healthy sexuality is about it, if it's partnered sex, that there be consent.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important for health is consent. I
Mm-hmm.
think also for a lot of women, especially, to minimize shame,
Mm-hmm.
that there doesn't need to be shame about my body.
Mm-hmm.
There doesn't need to be shame about, oh, does this mean I'm a whore? I'm a slut. I'm a bad girl. That's the bad shame.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a little shame can be good in sex. So I'm not for, like these other sex therapists, you've got to kill the shame, get rid of it. But I think sometimes a little of it is good, if it's a fantasy shame,
Correct.
kind of we call it fuel for eroticism.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
what would be your take on like BDSM in that sense? Do you think that has anything to do with like any trauma or
No, they've done research on that now. We've got plenty of research in America. It's
Mhm.
all in the last like 10, 15 years. Before that, the only academic publishings that we had on BDSM people was from therapists. So they would take a sample of people that were coming to them because they had problems,
Mhm.
as opposed to studying the general population of kinky people.
Mhm.
And what's been found and replicated over and over in research is that kinky people basically are not any different than the general population.
Okay.
I think I lost you
Yeah, I think
again.
the
I don't
internet.
hear anybody.
Wait. Is it my
Listen, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you
'Cause
perfectly.
I'll keep talking if you, there's no,
I'm so
okay, the research has found there's no significant difference. between kinky people and the general population. And that includes child sexual abuse, domestic violence, all kinds of things. There's no difference. The only difference is it's very slight, very slight. They found that in a study in the country Finland, they
Okay.
did a study. They found that kinky people tended to make a little more money, and
Money.
they tended to be higher educated, and uh, they tended to have more liberal ideology, especially around feminism and the equality for women and racial minorities than the general population.
Okay.
So, and then psychologically, they found that there's no difference in rates of anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar. It's the same percentage in the kink community as the general population of histrionic personality disorder and
Okay.
narcissistic personality disorder. Two things that they like: drama. These people like drama, and I always say kinky people like to put drama in their sex,
Okay. Yeah,
with
no,
lighting and music and theater, you know.
okay. So this is something that
So let's see.
okay, no, actually we have a question first. Let's get that answered actually. Um I lost the question because I left the meeting. It was something to do. Ninad, could you like post the question again, or like can you read the question? Is it there? Because I've lost the question.
Yeah, Ninad's got a question. It says, thank you for the previous answer. I'd also like to ask, how can different romances or relationships affect my sexuality? Now, if I didn't know anything, I would say a woman asked that question. I don't know, even know if Ninad is a girl's name or a boy's name,
I
but
think it's a boy's name. It's a boy's name.
oh, it's a boy's name, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's cool. Okay,
I'm
so
so glad that
I
like
love
I'm feeling comfortable
love
asking
when there's,
questions.
what's that?
I'm so glad that like it's like not the other way around. The boys are feeling comfortable to ask questions here. So thanks, Ninad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, because, okay, so we know in human sexuality that, again, from research studies in laboratory, that there's something called oxytocin, which is a chemical that's released that makes us feel really good, like an endorphin. And women have a lot more oxytocin than men do, just like men have a lot more testosterone. And oxytocin makes us feel connected to the person we're with. So during sex, women have these big oxytocin rushes. When women are breastfeeding, they have an oxytocin rush. Uh, and so women often just feel more connected than men do. And it's very important when we're studying sex and gender differences to know for women, generally speaking, not all women, but generally speaking, women are much more interested in the romance, the connection, all of these things. And men oftentimes they just need tits and a hole, and they just need a place. And they're not so concerned about the connection. But again, that's a generalization, and it's not black or white. There's lots of variation. So I think that some people are more affected by romance than others. And some people are affected by relationships more than others, Ninad. That, some people, it's a big part of their sexuality, and other people, it's not a part of their sexuality at all. So, or a very little part of their sexuality. Here's an example. This is what we would say a sex radical example. If you go to a gay sex club or a gay bathhouse, gay men go to have sex with each other. Most of them are not talking. Most of them are not interested in a relationship or romance. They just want to have sex with somebody, and they go and they're not talking, and they have sex and they leave and they're happy. If you go to a swinger party, which is usually heterosexual couples, a
Correct.
man and a woman together, they go to a swinger party. Nobody has sex until there's lots of talking, and and the women start the talking usually.
Okay.
Like a husband and wife will say, "Hey, that couple's hot. You want to try that?" Then the woman goes over and starts talking to them, usually to the other wife, and they have to feel a connection. They have to feel safe and secure, and like they're happy with this other person, and they'll go have sex. So that's an example. I'll give you one more example.
Yeah.
They've started lesbian clubs, and they always close within 3 or 4 months, because the women, the lesbians, they go, they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk, and nobody has sex. And there's very little initiating sexuality. So again, see, that's a difference between the genders. If you're looking at, sex clubs, and you compare gay men to gay women, huge difference.
Oh God.
I hope that answers your question.
I think that's brilliant.
Um,
Do you
I
think
mean, it can affect.
I'm so sorry, please continue. Please continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, romances and relationships can affect people's sexualities in many different ways. It can be very profound, or it could be important but not profound. So anyway, I was just going on.
Yeah. Thank
I'll
you.
put a period.
Okay, so what would you say? Okay, so this is something that I've read. I'm not too sure if it's a real thing. So, people with narcissistic personality disorder, they don't really see sex the same way that people without the disorder see it as. So it's more like a sense of power and control, rather than just sex in itself. Um, but that's just something I've heard.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I don't know if I would agree with that.
mm,
I always get a red flag when people want to pathologize a group of people.
uh-huh,
I feel defensive for them,
uh-huh,
and I think that there's a huge variety of narcissistic people, or people with narcissism. For example, uh, at the risk of, I'll take a risk. Donald Trump is, I love using him as an example of the
I love it.
worst of narcissistic personality disorder.
I love
He
that.
has all the features,
Mm-hmm.
and, and the worst of it. I would imagine having sex with him would be awful. I have a feeling he has no interest in pleasing the other person.
Oh
He
yeah,
has
I
no,
get what you're saying.
yeah, I think he doesn't care if he hurts the other person.
Yeah, that's feels
Uh,
like yeah, no.
so I would say this is an example of an extreme of
Uh-huh.
narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think there's all, like I said to a client a few years ago, he really liked it. I said, "You have narcissism light." Um,
That mean
well, it's probably an American joke. It means, like, when you go to the store and you buy a product and they take the fat out of it, they call it light. So,
okay.
like you're having ice cream, but it's
Uh-huh.
light. They took the sugar out, so it's not so bad, is what it means. You don't have to feel guilty. You don't have to feel bad because you're not eating the real thing. It's just a shortened version of it, and
Oh,
that's kind of, so I said, you have narcissism light. It's not, because, like, for example, one of the features is, okay, so there's 9 features of narcissism. You have to have 5 in order to be classified as narcissistic.
correct.
One of the features is, which Donald Trump, he has all of them, is the
Probably
need
more.
the need to annihilate anybody who disagrees with me,
Mm-hmm.
you're fired. Anybody who it doesn't agree with me, and that's really mean, but other narcissists are not mean at all. They're not mean. So they could have sex with someone and care a lot about making sure their partner has an orgasm.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would hate to put all narcissists in one group.
Yeah, I
I
would hate that
think
too,
that
honestly. It was just like a
would
question.
be
It's something that I read. But
prejudice.
that's actually something good to hear. Also, Ninad, you don't have to be sorry. You can ask like 50 million questions. No problem at all. Um,
Yeah, dude,
answer
don't
like
worry, keep asking.
um
Uh, I don't know about triangular theory. I know the psychological thing we call triangulating,
mhm.
like if mom and dad are triangular theory of love. That was my doctoral project, was on love. So, but yeah, I just don't know that theory. I'm so sorry.
Does are
Um,
you referring to triangulation? Because I think that's what I'm actually pretty confused too.
we talk about triangulating, like when a third party
Is you
tries to
like make the
get
other
into
jealous?
between two people and
Yeah,
resolve something. Like guy is triangulating.
I think yeah. What would be your take on triangulation when it comes to sexuality?
What do you mean? A
Um
three?
like suppose the Sternberg theory.